Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to welcome you all to another PIDS public webinar titled Examining the Academic and Economic Impact of School Bullying. I am Melinda Quinones, your host and moderator for today's session. Our webinar covers an incredibly timely and important topic, especially given the increasing news coverage on bullying in schools. Recently, the alarming issue of school violence has once again taken the spotlight following a viral video of senior high school students bullying a classmate inside a classroom in Quezon City. So this incident has sparked widespread public concern and prompted a formal Senate hearing on Tuesday, April 8, by the Senate Committee on Basic Education, led by Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, to address the rising cases of violence and bullying in schools. According to the 2018 Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA data, the Philippines recorded the highest number of bullying incidents among more than 70 participating countries. Unfortunately, by 2020, the country continued to show the same disturbing trend, earning the heartbreaking label of the bullying capital of the world. We are honored to have with us today a group of experts who will share their policy findings and recommendations on how we can address this growing concern. Together, let us explore not only the scope of the problem, but also actionable solutions that can help create a safer and more supportive environment for all students. We encourage you to join the discussion. Feel free to ask questions, share your thoughts, and interact with our panelists via the Zoom Q&A box or the Facebook Live comment section. So to formally start our program, let us welcome the PIDS President, Dr. Aniceto Orbeta Jr., for his opening remarks.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today for our public webinar titled Examining the Academic and Economic Impact of School Bullying. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the presence of the following distinguished guests. Philippine Statistical Research and Training Institute Executive Director Josefina Almeida, Department of Education Bureau of Learning Resources OIC Director Jason Lakbayan, National Council for Children's Television Executive Director Desideria Atienza, National Economic and Development Authority Region 7 Regional Director Jennifer Britannia, National Economic and Development Authority Region 10 Regional Director Myla Faye Aurora Carino, San Mateo Municipal College President Realdino Aquino, Polytechnic University of the Philippines University Teaching and Learning Development Office Director Elmer D. Jose, De La Salle University Dasmariñas School of Innovative and Flexible Learning Dean Constantino Ballena, National Teachers College School of Criminal Justice Dean Justinian Filoteo, and Unang Hakbang Foundation Incorporated President Oli Lucas. What if I told you that nearly 65% of students in the Philippines report being bullied at least once a month? According to the Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA, this rate is almost 3 times the global average. It's not only alarming, it's heartbreaking, as it sends a clear and urgent message: our schools need healing. In response to this serious concern, we have convened a distinguished panel of experts to examine the far-reaching effects of bullying on our students and society. This webinar aims to shed light on painful reality. Too many Filipino students, schools, places that should have fostered growth and safety and inclusion have become environments of fear and exclusion. Bullying is not merely a personal issue. Its consequences ripple outward, affecting educational outcomes, mental health, and ultimately national development. Although we have an Anti-Bullying Act of 2013, recent viral incidents underscore the continuing prevalence of bullying in our schools. Social media has played a critical role in exposing these cases and heightening public concern. Yet, awareness alone is not enough. We must strengthen the enforcement of existing laws, improve school-based reporting and support systems, and cultivate a culture grounded in empathy, inclusion, and respect. To help deepen our understanding and guide our actions, we are honored to present two important studies during this session. The first study examines how different forms of bullying correlate with schooling outcomes. It finds that bullying occurring outside of school, especially when committed by adults or parents, has particularly damaging effects. Beyond bullying, the study highlights how child and family characteristics, a sense of belonging, and the broader community environment play critical roles in shaping student experiences and outcomes. This research, titled Examining the Role of Bullying on Schooling Outcomes, Findings from Longitudinal Cohort Study on the Filipino Child, will be presented by Dr. Alejandro Herrin, a retired professor at UP School of Economics and Policy Advisor of the University of San Carlos Office of Population Studies Foundation, Incorporated. The second study explores how bullying contributes to the academic gap between proficient and non-proficient students. The resulting decline in learning is not just a personal loss. It could translate into an estimated annual economic cost of 10 to 20 billion due to diminished productivity and missed opportunities. This study is called Bullying Contributes to Lower PISA Achievement among Filipino students who gets bullied. Will be presented by Dr. Michael Abrigo, Senior Research Fellow at the Philippine Institute for Development Studies. For further enrich our discussions, we are honored to be joined by Dr. Delia, Professor at the University of San Carlos, and Dr. Allan Bernardo, Distinguished University Professor and University Fellow at the De La Salle University. As discussant, they will provide expert perspectives on the findings and help identify policy pathways toward more inclusive and effective responses. Addressing school bullying is central to achieving Sustainable Development Goal 4, which aims to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education for all. A recent PIDS study on SDG 4 emphasizes the importance of reducing inequality in education, both in access and quality, as a foundation for a more just, prosperous, and sustainable society. However, we cannot fully realize this vision without confronting the deeper and systemic issue of bullying in our schools. Tackling this challenge requires collective action. Educators, parents, school administrators, policymakers, and students all have a role to play in creating safer and more supportive learning environments. Only by working together can we empower our youth to thrive academically, socially, and emotionally. We encourage everyone to stay engaged throughout the webinar and participate actively in the open forum. Your questions and insights will enrich our collective understanding and shape more meaningful action. Thank you very much, and we look forward to having you join us in our succeeding webinars this year. I now turn the floor over to our moderator, Melinda.
Thank you, Dr. Orbeta, for setting the stage for today's discussion. As he said, awareness alone is not enough. So let us take a moment to reflect on why this conversation is so important to us. Bullying isn't just about conflict. It's about power, safety, and support. Its effects can be long-lasting, especially on students' academic motivation and self-esteem. That is why discussions like today are essential, not only for awareness, but for action. So before we proceed with our program today, let us start with a quick poll to hear your thoughts on the topic. So here's the question. What do you think is the most damaging effect of bullying? What do you think is the most damaging effect of bullying? So we have four choices here: decline in academic performance, loss of interest in learning, long-term career or financial harm, economic costs to society. For those on Zoom, kindly click the link posted in the chat box. For our Facebook Live viewers, you'll find the link in the comment section. So the poll question on your screen connects to today's discussion from an economic and education perspective. So right now we have 333 Zoom attendees and 30 live viewers on PIDS Facebook page. So we encourage everyone to take part in answering the survey. So let's see. Secretariat, are we now ready to show the result? All right. Now let's take a look at the poll result, okay? We have, how many respondents are there? (122) respondents. We have 122 respondents on our poll, okay? As we can see, right, a lot of our respondents said loss of inability, no? Yeah. Loss of interest in learning, yeah, 79%. 41% says decline in academic performance. 21% says long-term career financial harm. And 4% says economic cost to society. All right. Thank you very much for participating. So let us now proceed with the presentation. As Dr. Orbeta mentioned, today we will hear two PIDS studies. The first presentation is based on the PIDS study examining the role of bullying on schooling outcomes, findings from the Longitudinal Cohort Study on the Filipino Child by Dr. Alejandro N. Herrin, and his co-authors, which you can see on the slide presented. So this study explores how bullying, family background, and community influence student school performance, aiming to provide insights for better education policies and support to students. So today we are honored to have Dr. Alejandro N. Herrin as our presenter. Let me just read his bio. Dr. Herrin is a visiting research fellow at the University of San Carlos Office of Population Studies. A retired economics professor from the University of the Philippines, he holds a PhD in economics. His research focuses on health policy, population, gender, healthcare financing, and local governance. So everyone, let us give our attention to Dr. Herrin as he begins his presentation.
Thank you. Let me share my slides. Is that okay? Can you see?
Yes,
Hello?
sir. It's okay now.
Oh, okay. So although the co-authors were flashed briefly, let me introduce them quickly. Frank Largo, which is the current director of the Office of Population Studies, Judith Borja and Nanette Mayol, both co-lead investigators of the cohort study. John Aligado, who is assistant professor at the University of the Philippines in Cebu. Abet Bas, who is a senior research associate and data manager at the Office of Population Studies, and of course, Michael Abrigo, the senior research fellow at PIDS. First, we want to acknowledge Dr. Orbeta and Dr. Abrigo for the suggestions and comments, particularly on methodological issues, and also to the comments, suggestions of the participants in the PIDS research workshop that was held last January. So let me refresh you with a quick overview. It was mentioned already about our results in PISA 2018, which shows that we were ranked close to the bottom in terms of the scores in mathematics, science, and reading, but ranked rather at the top in terms of bullying in school. There has been some analysis of the PISA data 2018, particularly by Dr. Orbeta himself. Our study attempts to supplement those kinds of studies by using the longitudinal data from this is difficult to pronounce, Longitudinal Cohort Study of the Filipino Child, Cohort Study for short. In this study, we examined 3 measures of schooling outcomes, 5 types of bullying, and a wide range of background factors. We find that some forms of bullying do have significant association with schooling outcomes. Of particular interest is the bullying of adults and parents outside of the school. Also, of further interest, this is subject to further confirmation, is the possibility that emotional bullying from friends and classmates might actually have a positive effect on schooling. We need to examine this further. While the primary focus was on bullying, we also look at the role of the different background factors and indeed find that they are critical in schooling outcomes. Many policies have been already enacted. We have the EDCOM 1 report, EDCOM 2 report, and various results from the PIDS discussion papers and policy notes. What is needed is implementation, the challenge being how to implement. And these challenges have been mentioned by Dr. Bernardo himself, by Dr. Abrigo, Dr. Orbeta, and others. So we end with a note on further research, what we need to get into later. So the longitudinal cohort study, the source of the data, was designed to examine the lives of Filipinos, how they have changed during the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. The research strategy is to prospectively survey a nationally representative sample of children, around 5,000 at the beginning, and hopefully we can keep them up to the end, since they were 10 years old, and hoping to follow them through at the end of 2030 when they would be 24 years old. This survey is implemented and supported by Philippine government agencies and by our development partners, UNFPA, UNICEF, and the Australian government. And it's being implemented by a consortium of demographic research institution. At the Office of Population Studies, we have the Office of Population Studies themselves, and Center for Social Research and Education. Then we have the Demographic Research and Development Foundation at the University of the Philippines, and the Research Institute for Mindanao Culture at Xavier University. The cohort study includes several core modules, and you can see there it includes exposure to bullying, and it captures a whole set of milestones from puberty when they were 10 years old, and hope to follow them through up to parenthood by the end of 2030. Let me describe briefly concepts and measures and the framework that we use. Essentially, we adapt a simple framework having 3 measures of schooling outcomes. One is on track with schooling. We'll discuss that a bit. Class days missed during the last 30 days, and average school grade in the last school year. So as you can see, our schooling outcomes is different from the PISA with standardized scores. Then we have 5 measures of bullying, 3 types of physical bullying from friends and classmates, from adults, and from parents, and 2 types of emotional bullying, emotional hurt from friends and classmates, as well as from parents. We applied the usual common methods, statistical methods appropriate to longitudinal analysis, and for which we are grateful to Dr. Orbeta and Dr. Abrigo for guiding us through this. We also have a set of background factors, including child factors, measures of belongingness, family factors, and community factors, We'll see them in a while, but shows you the wide range of information that the cohort data has. Let me briefly say something about this measure of schooling, on track with schooling. While the PISA 2018 study focused on the scores in standardized tests, there was also mention both in the PISA reports and in a World Bank special report for the Philippines, this concern regarding students behind track. So meaning that at their age, they are behind the grade that they should be in. And the World Bank report for the 2018 sample showed that 17% of the 15-year-old students were behind track as well. So we thought that this would be a nice starting point. And Dr. Borja has actually worked on putting together the information for measuring on track using the cohort study. So cohort, the on track with schooling is defined as starting grade 1 at or before age 7. At time of survey, they are enrolled in the age-appropriate grade level. The data shows, looking at the percentage on track with schooling over the waves. The waves are the survey periods. We have 6 periods, but we shall see later on the bullying periods omitted 1. Now we see here that, and we also put in the enrollment as part of that comparison. So we find that enrollment is remains high, around 96% all throughout the different waves. But the on track with schooling has been declining. And by 2022, when they were 16 years old, the on track is only 80%, or what is the same thing by 16-year-old, that's around grade 10 and 11. The children, school children, 20% are already off track. Now, what about bullying? How did we get information on bullying? This was simply obtained through responses to questions. These are the questions that were asked in the different waves or surveys. Physically hurt by friends and classmates, physically hurt by adults, and then physically hurt by parents, and witnessing physical violence at home. And emotional bullying measures, these are being hurt their feelings or emotionally hurt by friends and classmates, as well as by parents. Now, it's just a simple question. We'll return to this. How much face value do we take with respect to this kind of information? Unlike in the case of PISA, as Dr. Orbeta was saying, there was additional question regarding how often they have been bullied. And later on, we discussed that additional work has been going at the cohort study that tries to get more information out of the bullying measures. So these are the information we get. The physical bullying, it has been declining also over the different waves. The physically hurt by adults and parents are there, which is an additional information. But we see that physically hurt by friends and relatives, friends and classmates still predominate in this. In the case of emotional bullying, although it's also declining, they tend to remain high, both for friends and classmates and by parents. So on-track schooling is declining. Bullying is also declining. And you seem to have a positive relationship between these two. And this was difficult for us to unravel and separate out in the earlier parts of the analysis. And by the way, there was an earlier report of the discussion paper appearing in December 2024, if you have found them in the PIDS web. That is the earlier version. What we have now is a more updated and more complete version. And hopefully pretty soon it will be brought out by PIDS. Then the background factors. In the two slides, these are so many that shows you the richness of the cohort survey data. And we have here information regarding various kinds of child factors like IQ, depressive symptoms, belongingness like social scale, and also the traditional family factors like wealth, education of mothers, and the usual community factors regarding the residence of the children. Let's go quickly to the summarizing the results. There are two sets of results we have. One is looking at the relationship between bullying and schooling outcomes, controlling for background factors. And the second one is association between the background factors and schooling outcomes without the bullying. We wanted also to highlight the importance of the background factors. So as you can see here, we have the entire set of statistical results and tables and spreadsheets and so on. And we thought we would summarize the results in terms of a map, a results map, which is easier to see and discuss. So the negative or positive shows you the direction and significance of the results. If the cells are empty, it means that the results were not significant. So we have the three different schooling outcomes: on track with schooling, school days missed, and average school grade. And we had two sets of analysis. One, when we included all of the bullying variables together, there could be some the correlation between them, but not very much. The other one is to see the specific bullying type and have a separate analysis for them. And we had analysis when we combined both sexes, as well as when we separated out both male and female. So we can see that from the on-track schooling, physically hurt by adults and physically hurt by parents shows a negative influence on schooling outcomes for both sexes, and to some extent by males in the other type of analysis. What we find is that the emotional hurt by friends and classmates seem to have a positive effect on on-track schooling. This is true for both sexes, as well as for females when all of the types are put together. That's something we wanted to note and discuss later. In terms of school days missed, the effects are positive as expected. Now we need to reverse our thinking here in the sense that why is it positive? The bullying itself increases the absences of school children, so we get a positive one. Unlike where we're used to the other negative type of influences. So those are as expected. And then on average grade, it's physically hurt by friends and classmates that have a negative as expected. But again, the emotional hurt by friends and classmates, again, shows positive relationships. And so altogether, it appears that physical bullying, especially from adults and parents, have expected negative effects on schooling outcomes. On the other hand, emotional bullying from friends and classmates have positive effect on on-track schooling and average grades. These are unexpected and deserves additional investigation, whether these are real things that we can work on, or is this merely a statistical artifact in the way that we had analyzed the data? So this is the map, and we can go on into the background factors and schooling outcomes. Although outside the main focus of the study, it's still important since the EDCOM in particular is looking at the schooling outcomes in general. And so we have in this slide the child factors and belongingness, and all of them are in the expected signs and significance. So we have a male tend to be poorly, have poorer outcomes. Then you have the effect of favorable cognitive endowment and early interventions like attending nursery, motivation of the child, which are all positive. Then there are also impediments that negatively influence schooling outcomes. These include disability, child work, and depressive symptoms, as well as being stunted. Then, interestingly, attending public school have associated with negative effects on schooling outcomes. Under belongingness, we have this measure social scale, which is a favorable effect on schooling outcomes of the 3 schooling outcomes. This social scale measures the child's membership in organization, the number and frequency of contact with friends, positive behavior with family members, and so on, based on a tool often used by psychologists. So that's by itself an interesting addition to our understanding of what other background factors are important. In this second slide, we have the traditional factors, family wealth, in terms of wealth quintile, the education with the mother, which actually represent many things. For one, I was thinking of provides an intellectual atmosphere at home, but it also had other aspects to it, the efficiency by which they are able to care for children, especially in their schooling and so on. Then there's only one red here, unexpected sign, that is children residing in GIDA areas. We know GIDA is remote, isolated, and more likely to be far from school, difficult to go to school. They might have to walk to school, but yet it doesn't seem to affect their school days presence. So my thinking here is that although they are recorded as residing in GIDA, these children actually might be in their friends or relatives or even in dorms outside of the GIDA, close to the town where the schools are. And we have experience, especially people in the Cordilleras, they actually, even the high school kids go to the municipality where the high school is, and that's where they either live with their relatives or they actually stay in private dorms. So that might explain this particular thing. Then we go into the policies. I suppose since this is a policy work, we need to take a look at this. And what we find is the obvious thing. We have been reading this. PIDS has been producing so much of this. And you have the EDCOM that has also produced so much in such a short period. We have already a set of policies that exist to address more specifically bullying and more generally improving schooling outcomes. And as I mentioned, EDCOM 1, EDCOM 2, the World Bank report on PISA, the OECD reports on PISA, and so on. But what is the challenge is the implementation. And this has been emphasized by Dr. Bernardo in particular, Abrigo, and Orbeta in their writings in PIDS, also Orbeta and Dr. Pacquiao. So the challenge is there, and what we think is adapt a simple set of strategies. One is the system strengthening approach to scaling up implementation, which put together governance, financing, human resources, supply chains management, and information system. Then perhaps importantly, while we are implementing anti-bullying policies based on the legislation, we can probably focus on those aspects of the anti-bullying policies on prevention programs and intervention programs. And this particularly refers to, for example, building positive sense of self and interpersonal relationship through development of self-awareness and self-management, interpersonal skills and empathy, responsible decision-making and problem-solving. That's for the classroom level initiatives. There's also apparent preventive activities, which includes discussions on school policy, education sessions for parents. Then you have preventive intervention programs that include counseling, skills training, and other activities that enhance the psychological, emotional, and psychosocial well-being of both the victim and the bully. Then finally, perhaps coordinate this set of legislation implementation of which one is the Anti-Bullying Act, the second is the Mental Health Act, and more recently, the Basic Education, Mental Health, and Well-Being Act, which was signed by the President just last year, 2024. The role of background factors, we're all familiar with them. Many of them needs to be done much earlier in the game. For example, stunting and other things. What I said is the strategy there is to get started yesterday. Finally, notes for further research. We need to better understand what is really bullying, how it is understood in many different contexts, how it is understood in the Anti-Bullying Act, and how it is understood when we ask about it with our respondents, especially among different regions, which might have a different term for what they mean. We need also to look at the association between bullying and mental health, since they are closely related. Then, if we care, you can take a look at, is there really something to this positive response to bullying that motivates people and, in fact, end up with better schooling outcomes? And as we look at the background factors, you can see that many interconnection about many of these variables. Right now, we just included them all together in a particular regression, but there are many interconnections, the simultaneous issues, endogeneity issues, the feedback loop, and given the longitudinal nature of the data, the sequencing over time, and those will become important field for exploration from the standpoint of analysis and econometrics. With that, thank you very much. I hope I didn't spend too much time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that compelling presentation, Dr. Herrin. Please stay with us for the open forum. So we are actually joined online today by his co-authors here on Zoom. We have Dr. John Lorenzo Aligado, Dr. Judith Rafaelita Borja, Dr. Nanette Mayol, Mr. Francisco Largo, Ms. Isabelita Baz, and of course, Dr. Mike Abrigo. So they are here with us today. So to further deepen our conversation, our second study will focus on the economic impact of school bullying, particularly how early experiences in school can influence employment, income levels, and productivity in later life. So this is based on the PIDS study, School Bullying Contributes to Lower PISA Achievement Among Filipino Students. Who Gets Bullied? Why Does It Matter? By Dr. Michael Abrigo, Mr. Edmar Lingatong, and Ms. Charlotte Marjorie Relos. So this study takes a more targeted approach to quantifying the specific impact of bullying on learning outcomes and estimating the associated economic costs. It also identifies key risk factors to severe bullying and highlights regional disparities in bullying risks. Allow me to introduce Dr. Abrigo, who will present this study. Dr. Abrigo is a senior research fellow at PIDS, focusing on 4Ps, impact evaluation, and basic education studies. His research on population change and human resource policies has been published in top journals. He was named an outstanding young scientist in 2022 and is currently a visiting researcher at the University of Tokyo. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Dr. Michael R.M. Abrigo. You may now take the virtual floor.
Thank you so much, Melinda, and thank you everyone for being here. It's always nice to share the things that we do at the Institute. Let me share my screen. Ayan. Big na. Okay, so as mentioned by Melinda, this is a joint work with my colleagues at PIDS and Lingatong and Tweetams Relos. This is part of our contribution to the Second Education Commission. Frankly speaking, this is a new area for us. I am an economist, and yung team ko there's an economist and a sociologist. And this is a new area of research for us. And nung start kami, hindi ko masyadong iniisip yung bullying. Because, maybe like many of you na bago dun sa issue, we thought na maraming mas malalaking issue kaysa bullying. Bullying, during that time, we were thinking bullying is not a big problem for us, maybe. We're not like Japan or Korea that you hear news na meron nagpapakamatay, tumatuloy sa reels ng tren, and wala namang masyadong ganun sa Pilipinas. Wala pang masyadong ganung show about bullying in the Philippines, unlike in these other countries. And while we were doing this study, it's nice to be proven wrong by your own study, na mali pala yung naisip ko dati, mali pala yung naiisip namin dati. So, wala siya. Okay. So, this international literature, we know that bullying matters because those who were bullied suffer from poor mental health. They're more likely to suffer from psychosomatic conditions. Mas masakit yung ulo nila, mas madalas na sumakit yung ulo nila. They have worse academic outcomes. And yung longer-term outcome based on the international literature is that they have lower labor force participation rate, they have lower employment rate, and these cascades sa income nila and eventually wealth accumulation. Mas mahihirap yung mga nabully nung bata sila. The story is quite similar in the Philippines, at least to the extent on mental health and academic outcomes. Pero ang studies kasi sa Pilipinas, most of the studies that we've seen when we're reviewing this literature is based on small case studies, pointing school, a group of schools in a specific location. Konti lang yung mga studies that relies on large sample surveys, national representative surveys. A few exceptions of those would include Chu and Vargo that looks at the GSHS in 2011, and they found that there's higher risk of suicidal ideation and attempt yung mga batang nabully. Dr. Orbeta also showed that there's a strong negative association with average scores. Pero yung results natin in the Philippines is quite mixed because, we have other studies showing that there appears to be some protective effects against low science achievement, as shown by a study by Dr. Bernardo that was published in 2023. And earlier, sa study namin nila Dr. Herrin found that for some types of bullying, baka merong positive association siya with attendance. Okay. So this study somehow tries to address some of the lingering questions that we have. So one is, pag sinabing bullying, ano ibig sabihin nun? What does bullying look like in the Philippines? And I guess yung susunod is, does bullying matter? Kung nabully ka, ano ngayon, di ba? And kung nabully ngayon, if it does matter, we want to take a step back to answer who gets bullied. And then expand it again, where is bullying risk highest? So kung in this sense, kung maghahanap tayo ng programa, kung gusto na meron tayong bagong programa on bullying, anti-bullying, saan tayo dapat mag-focus? If there are takeaways that I want you to get from this presentation, tatlo yung gusto kong iuwi nyo sa mga bahay nyo, sa mga opisina nyo na pwedeng i-discuss to build better policies to improve yung mga condition ng mga bata sa school. One is that school bullying is quite pervasive, and this has been mentioned by Dr. Orbeta earlier. Second, school bullying contributes to learning losses. And finally, disadvantaged children are more likely to get bullied. Siguro, hindi naman bagong-bago itong mga idea na ito. Baka meron tayong hunch, hinala dito. But what's new in this study is that we try to provide some numbers to these ideas. Well, yung methodology namin, papasadahan ko lang na mabilis, we rely largely on the Program for International Student Assessment ng OECD in 2022. This is an international large-scale student assessment based on representative sample of 15-year-old students in around 80 countries around the world, at least in 2022. So what we did was, and we're very thankful to DepEd for this, that we were able to identify ano ba itong mga school na to so that we can link yung iba pang information about the school that's not available in PISA, but it's available from DepEd, DepEd's Basic Education Information System. So mas rich yung aming analysis. We were also able to link yung community level characteristics from the 2020 Census of Population Housing and conflict data and other information from other databases. So in the end, we have about 100 plus variables na trying to correlate that with schooling outcomes and bullying. So we did some statistical techniques, and I will maybe discuss this a little bit earlier. So yung first question namin is, what does bullying look like? Okay, so sa PISA, meron siyang score on bullying ng bawat bata. And if you take the average of that for each country, and you take the standard deviation, the dispersion of that score for the students within each country, you can see the Philippines nandun sa upper right. So somehow, tayo yung nag-frame ng picture. Tayo yung pinakamataas ang average score sa bullying, tayo din yung pinakamataas yung variation, dispersion do sa bullying. Ibig sabihin, mas nabubuli tayo, mas mataas yung nabubuli yung mga bata, at mas varied yung klase ng bullying na na-experience nila. So, yung average, yung score na yon on bullying is normed dun sa OECD average, and about 20% of those of Filipino students actually are less bullied than the OECD average. Pero if you look at the top 10% most bullied globally, ito yung mga, so kung nirank mo yung score nila, top 10% sa buong mundo, 36% of Filipino students in the 2022 PISA were actually part of that 10% most bullied globally. So marami lang doon sa pinaka-bullied ng mga Pilipino, even if you compare it against the world. So what does bullying look like? So yung PISA, meron siyang mga tanong on activities that somehow resembles bullying. So other students left me out of things on purpose, other students made fun of me, I was threatened by other students, hanggang dun sa dulo na I stayed home because I felt unsafe. I gave money to someone at school because they threatened me. So if you compare yung mga lahat ng estudyante, average student, about 76% of students experience one of these 9 activities in the past year. Kung part ka ng most bullied student na nasa Pilipinas, lahat yan na-experience mo at least once in the past year. So punta naman tayo in the past month. So 75% of the most bullied Filipino students, the part ng global na most bullied, actually have experienced at least one of those 9 activities in the past months regularly. 1.6 of those most bullied experienced all of these regularly. 0.6% lang for all students. Pero if you extrapolate that to all 15-year-old students in the Philippines, it's about 11,000 students na nakaka-experience ng bullying almost weekly, and all these forms. So, para makita natin ano ba yung itsura ng bullying sa eskwelahan. So, ito na tanong, so nabubully ka, does bullying matter? Okay? So to be able to answer this, we did a decomposition on student outcomes. We tried to compare yung average score ng mga proficient and non-proficient students and then put in all other factors that we think that correlates with these proficiency measures and to assess gaano ba kalaki yung contribution ng bullying sa difference ng score ng proficient and non-proficient students. So, tatlong grupo siya. So, meron kang endowment effect, ibig sabihin, magkaiba yung average score nyo on bullying. Meron ka rin coefficient effect, which essentially tells you na pareho yung bullying nyo, pero magkaiba yung how you deal with this bullying. Okay? So, we try to assess that, and we're showing here the endowment effects. So, sa ilalim, yung x-axis is your standardized difference. If you go to your right, ibig sabihin mas mataas yung score ng mga proficient na estudyante. Pag pumunta ka sa left, mas mataas yung score dyan. I mean, yung characteristics niyan doon sa mga non-proficient student. Pag pumunta ka sa taas, ibig sabihin mas mataas yung score ng proficient student. Pag nandun ka sa baba, mas mataas yung score ng non-proficient student. So if you can see here, kung mahanap nyo yung bullying, nandito siya sa upper left na quadrant. So ibig sabihin yan, mas mataas yung bullying score sa mga non-proficient students. Nandun siya sa upper right, so ibig sabihin mas mataas yung score ng mga proficient student. Okay? So ibig sabihin yan, dahil mas mataas yung bullying sa mga non-proficient, mas mababa yung score nila kaysa doon sa proficient students. It's quite interesting na meron dito mga iba pang mga characteristics that explains yung differences between the proficient and non-proficient students. So you have your socioeconomic status, if they miss school, they're curious, age variation within schools. But among these, consistent ay yung bullying na always part of the top 5 na mga explanatory variables that explains the difference between the scores of proficient and non-proficient students. So ito is just another view of that, showing you gaano ba kalaki yung endowment effects tsaka yung unexplained effects. And as I mentioned earlier, malaki yung score na kino-contribute ng bullying sa difference between proficient and non-proficient students. So it's about 5 PISA points. So mga 5% of a standard deviation, which is quite sizable. Okay? If we take this 5 PISA points, so yung 5 PISA points, mukhang maliit lang yan, di ba? Pero if we take these 5 PISA points and try to estimate, do a back-of-the-envelope calculation to estimate ano kaya ang contribution niya sa economy natin? Are there lost opportunities because of this? So we did that using a similar study that did the same and applied that to the Philippine case, pero instead of yung tinignan nila doon ay contribution ng COVID, here we're looking at the contribution of bullying. Yung 5 PISA points na yun actually leads to about 0.05 to 0.08 percentage points decline in long-run GDP of the Philippines, which is, ano ba, medyo maliit pa din, di ba? Kung iisipin natin, in the grand scheme of things. But these actually translate to about 10 to 20 billion worth with our current GDP. So to put this into perspective, ano ba yung kapareho ng 10 to 20 billion na yan? So this is approximately yung budget ng DepEd for textbooks in 2024, which is about 12 billion, and the whole computerization program of DepEd, which is about 8 billion. So kaya mag-run ng program yung worth ng learning loss natin from bullying that we experience. So next na tanong, importante yung bullying sa mga bata at sa economy natin, then who gets bullied? So here, what we did was we brought the big guns. We used machine learning to actually identify ano ba yung mga correlates ng machine learning. So we have classic logistic regression, lasso regression, gradient boosted classifier. So ito yung mga vanilla flavored natin ng mga ML techniques. Just an aside, here I'm showing you na, well, regardless of the technique, mukhang pareho naman yung kanilang capacity to actually tease out sino yung nabully at hindi nabully. Okay. So, using those model, we try to identify ano ba yung features na pinaka-importante when we're talking about bullying. So we use the gradient boosted classifier influence characteristic. Essentially, this is just telling us dun sa mga variation na kaya nating explain how much of those variations are actually can be explained by these characteristics. And the top 5 factors, yung experience hunger in past month, grade repeater, being in a public school, independency ratio, being female actually explains about 2/3 of the variation that we can extract from the data. So malaki yung kaya nating i-explain. Just an aside, gusto rin namin tanungin, ano kaya ang contribution? Kaya bang explain nung having a principal as a school head or a guidance counselor yung experiences ng bullying ng mga bata? And unfortunately, yung data na to is only available for public schools. But still, we look at it and it turns out, konti lang yung contribution nung having a principal or having a guidance counselor. And I guess this leads to some questions na I will discuss later. So, sinabi natin kanina na kayang i-explain yung variation ng mga variables na ito, pero hindi natin alam ano yung direction ng correlation ng mga variables na ito na sa tingin natin na importante doon sa actual experience of bullying. So, we look at the logistic regression just to see ano ba yung direction na yon. So, what we found was that disadvantaged children, so yung mga repeater na, the experience hunger, are more likely to be bullied in schools. They are twice more likely to be bullied than non-repeater or those who have not experienced hunger. Yung being female and studying in a private school appears to have some protective effects against bullying. They are less likely to be bullied. Okay, so using this model, we try to expand this naman sa buong Pilipinas kasi ito specific na mga bata, to individual level na mga characteristics, individual level na analysis. Pero if we think na meron tayong dapat pagtuunan ng lugar, paano natin gagawin yon? So what we did was to do a small area estimate. Using the same model, we found yung mga analogs nila at the community level so that we can somehow predict yung probability of being bullied in these communities. So from individual level, we predict yung probability of being bullied in a school, and then we aggregated it at the province level para meron tayong numbers for each province. Yung kasing PISA was designed to be na national siya. There are some estimates at the regional level, pero medyo manipis. So what we did was to bridge that gap in the data so that we can have a province level an estimate of bullying risk. The risk of bullying part the most bullied in the world. Okay, so saan pinakamataas yung bullying risk across the country? So sabi natin kanina, private schools have lower average bullying risk, and this is shown in this Cohort map. Pag sa public school ka, mas likely ka mabullied. Pero pag mas mayaman yung lugar nyo, like in Mega Manila, NCR yan, Calabarzon, Cebu ba nag-register dito, mas mababa kayo ng konti na mabully. Yung risk nyo of being part of that most bullied around the world. So merong protective effect yung pagiging mayaman ng lugar nyo. But we also found na even if merong mga lugar na kahit pareho yung kanilang average risk of being bullied, napakalaki ng dispersion ng bullying risk across schools within these locations. An example would be Abra and Ifugao. They are about the same bullying risk. Pero pag tinignan mo yung dispersion sa loob, malapad yung dispersion, bullying risk within provinces. And what we also found was that yung within province disparity in bullying risk appears to increase with average bullying risk. So habang mas mataas yung risk within that location, nagiging mas varied din yung risk within. So these are just some of the summary and maybe some implications. Mas maraming tanong kaysa proposal. So school bullying is concerning kasi for many reasons. One is that there's a non-trivial proportion of students who are at risk of being bullied in schools. Ang laki nung nasa most bullied ng mga bata na nasa Pilipinas. The difference in bullying experience captures a significant portion of differences in the average score between proficient and non-proficient students, and we estimated that this may lead to substantial economic losses. Mukha siyang barya, pero it could actually fund important programs na dapat napunta para sa mga bata. And the good thing is that we think that bullying is a modifiable risk factor of learning losses. Unlike socioeconomic status that would require generations para makorect, yung bullying is something that we can do something about now na. So, but the issue is that paano ating gagawin yun? International evidence suggests many successful programs. What we need is to identify what works for the Philippines. We need some experimentation na ito nag-work sa ibang bansa. Pag tinransplant natin sa Pilipinas, mag-work pa rin ba siya? Anong condition siya mag-work? Ano yung kailangan natin para mag-work siya? This study provides some guidance of what to watch out for support. So kung tayo yung program managers, kung tayo yung school head o tayo yung guidance counselor, sino ba yung dapat nating tignan, yung dapat nating bantayan sa school? So we found that public school students, females, already disadvantaged. Ito yung mga dapat nating tignan. Kung magagawa tayo ng mga programa, meron tayong batang binabantayan. We also found that areas with high average bullying risk but low dispersion. So ibig sabihin, pag high average risk ka pero low yung dispersion, lahat kayo, halos marami sa inyo ay pare-parehong nabubuli. So siguro if we have a program, dun tayo pinakamalaki ang gains if dun tayo magpo-focus sa mga areas. And finally, I think we need to capacitate yung school personnel natin tsaka yung community. Need to focus more on supportive actions versus punitive actions, preventive actions, and rehabilitative programs para dun sa nabully at dun sa mga nabubully. Kanina na-mention ko kanina na hindi namin nakita na malaki yung contribution of having a school head and a guidance counselor sa experience of bullying across schools. But we think yung school head and yung guidance counselors have important roles to play. So siguro ang iniisip namin, how do we capacitate school heads, guidance counselors, make them have a bigger role, more impact to the extent na ma-address natin yung bullying sa schools. Maraming pong salamat. Magandang umaga.
Thank you, Dr. Abrigo. Napaka-insightful po ng inyong presentation. As a mother, I've learned the full cycle effects of bullying across a person's life. And it isn't just a short-term issue. It can shape my child's future in powerful and lasting ways. So a while ago, Dr. Herrin discussed the effects of bullying on students' academic performance, and Dr. Abrigo examined the long-term economic consequences. So beyond the classroom talaga, it can also affect our children's future work opportunities and ability to earn a stable livelihood. So it's not just about hurting feelings in the moment, it's about protecting yung full potential ng ating mga estudyante in the long run. So Dr. Abrigo is joined today on Zoom by his co-author, Ms. Charlotte Marjorie Relos. Please don't go away yet. I'm sure a lot of our participants have questions for you and Dr. Herrin, to just stay put. We will come back to you in a little while, no? To our participants, please type in your questions. Please use the Q&A box in the Zoom platform. For our Facebook Live participants, you may use the comment section. Please do not forget to include your name and your affiliation. Ayan. So good news to all of our FB Live viewers. We've been receiving a lot of questions asking if we can give out certificates for those watching via Facebook Live. And we hear you. We understand that many of you might be at work, in school, or just somewhere you can't fully tune in right now. That's why we're trying something new. So today we have replay on demand. Starting today, you can replay this live session at your most convenient time and still get a certificate of attendance. Just watch the replay and answer our quick pop quiz by scanning the QR code we will be showing on your screen. Ayan. So the quiz link is also posted in the comment section of this live feed. Viewers who will complete the quiz by 10 p.m. tonight or 10 tonight will receive their certificate via email. And so those who are watching here on Zoom, we will be sharing the link naman to our feedback survey near the end of the program. So wag po kayong aalis. So for our Zoom participants, once you complete the form, a certificate of participation will be automatically generated for you. So make sure to stay tuned and don't miss it. So now let's open our discussion by inviting two industry experts as discussants to share their insights on the studies presented. Our first discussant is Dr. Delia Belleza. She is a registered psychologist and former dean of the School of Arts and Sciences at the University of San Carlos. She holds a PhD in social psychology and specializes in social cultural psychology and adolescent behavior. She is a full-time faculty member and consultant at the USC's Office of Population Studies. Dr. Belleza, you may now start your presentation.
Hi, good morning. Let
Good
me
morning.
share. Is this okay?
Yes, ma'am, we
Okay na
can
ba
see it.
po? Okay. So, good morning to everyone, and it's my pleasure to be invited for this webinar and to share my insights to the first study by Dr. Herrin and the rest of the team. I'm quite familiar also with the LCSFC work and data. First, of my presentation, this is just an outline of, this is very short, but this is just a guide of the things that I want to share, based from the study being presented. First is, I would like to define what bullying is, what constitutes it. I think it's very important because there are several behaviors that might manifest somewhat like bullying but might not qualify as bullying, and also the challenges and of course the opportunities, on what we can do from the data presented. There's already the policies that are being written, and the notes, and also the Republic Act has been in place, but how do we move forward from there? So first is the definition of bullying. So I think we really need to see how it is defined by scholars. It's defined as an aggressive, intentional act carried out by a group or an individual repeatedly and over time against a victim who cannot easily defend him or herself. So by definition, if we search the literature, there are three core elements what makes bullying act. So first, it must be repeated, meaning it's not just one time, maybe the following week. So within a month, the experience is there more than once. Second, intentional. There's really the intention to hurt, to embarrass, to, whether physical or emotional. There's the intention to hit on the particular individual or a particular student. So usually because they're vulnerable, they don't look the same, they're different, or they're weak. So it's really there's the intention of hurting, the intention of the aggression. And second, it involves a power imbalance. So it means that somebody dominates another weaker individual. So this definition is important in determining and distinguishing bullying from other incidents. There can, because since this occurs among peers, frequently occurs among peers, kaya sa school setting siya palagi. And there's an increasing rate already of bullying in the digital space, because they interact also in the digital space. So it happens in a certain social interaction and usually among the same age group. And some are out of conflicts among friends. Baka may mga conflicts sila among themselves or revenge or something. So these behaviors are aggressive behaviors, but not all aggression actually qualifies for bullying. So it's important that we know the core elements of bullying, because we might get some data that we thought or we close to bullying, but it was out of conflict from friends, or if from parents, it was about discipline, it was about reprimanding. So I think that's one thing we can streamline, in looking at the concept of bullying. With this, actually, there are challenges in looking. I think this is also one of the reason there was difficulty in the implementation or setting up programs. First is really measuring the bullying, operationalization of the construct itself. So studies have shown that there are variations in the rates of prevalence of bullying, and this is due to the fact that one study might measure it differently than the other studies. So I think we go back again to the definition and try to find a common way of understanding the construct and have a common or consensus on how to measure what we call bullying. But the construct itself is not simple. So there is complexities in what we call bullying, because it overlaps also with other experiences, negative and aggressive experiences of the student. So there is what we call adverse childhood experience, and bullying is one, but there are also a range of what we call adverse childhood experience. Looking or observing or witnessing some violence at home or even at the neighborhood can be an adverse childhood experience. So the complexity of bullying is there. Plus, as I've mentioned, there's already an increased rate of bullying in the digital space. Something that we monitor less. No? Sa school kasi we can look at it, it will be reported, ganun. May mga policies sa school. We can, look. However, in the digital space, we have less control on what they click, and they have been involved in a lot of social interactions in which hindi natin na makikita, no? So we don't know how they manage the information that they get, the feedbacks that they get, even from strangers, no, from a single post, or so it instigates certain negative affect, no. So hindi natin alam how far, although the LCSFC data study has actually data also on how often mga screen times and what do they do online. So it would be nice also to put that in, because that's an increasing phenomenon on them being bullied online by strangers. And this is really something that complicates things also. No? If the policies are built for a school infrastructure, and programs, eto hindi natin, it's less, we have less control for that. And with that, there are opportunities. So we've seen from the study of Dr. Herrin and team that the questions are about whether they were being hurt by a friend or a classmate, or being physically or emotionally hurt by parents. So I think since the LCSFC data is longitudinal, it has really a vast, an array of variables that we can work on. So choosing variables, no, based also of the construct as we define it, kasi ang dami, no? So there are individual factors, there are social factors, there are community, there's a family factor. Streamlining these factors can give us some way of really focusing certain effects or influence of exposure variables towards what outcome variable. It can be schooling. Even in schooling, if you would see in the data, if you notice, no, as children mature, there's a decrease of percentage of them experiencing emotional hurt from parents and also from friends. However, if you look at the graph that was presented, there's also an increase of students being already off track in school. So as they age, mas dumadami na din ang number of students who came to school not really on track. No? They missed some years. And it would be nice to look, did they miss it because of economic reasons? So meaning money or health. So there are different angles in looking at all of these variables, no, from exposure and outcome. So we can select, so we can see the trend, we can focus. So it's more directed, and which variables really contribute, which variables really, because the variables interact, no? As what Dr. Rin said, ang dami, no? Ang daming variables. What was interesting is also the social aspect variable, kasi andun yung questions of membership of groups, membership of clubs, and it shows some level of quality of the relationship with friends. So it's a strength, and I think it's nice to look at it and include it, and perhaps also identifying what we call buffers. We've seen, interestingly, that being hurt by friends was more of a positive, seem to buffer. So it's nice to look at it. Bakit kaya hindi siya sa usual trend, no? Sa hindi siya sa expected trend. So with all these variables, we can identify moderators, mediators. We can play around and try to zero in what are the things really can help, no, as protective factors, and what are those that would that would profile who are most likely to be bullied, and even who are the bullies, no, the characteristics of bullies. But again, it's the complexity is there. There's no such thing as one profile for these characteristics. So another opportunity, of course, is as what Dr. Herrin has mentioned. There have been Republic Acts. No, we have the Anti-Bullying Act, and we also have the Mental Health, no, Act, which can go hand in hand. However, when it comes to already implementation, even at the school level and even at private schools, there have been challenges to it. But one area that we can perhaps look and enhance, this was mentioned on the positive response to bullying. So we might not have control over what they look, how they interact with their friends, We don't have much control of family dynamics, no? Hindi naman natin makokontrol na dapat well yung or well adjusted yung bata if and only if, no? So there are circumstances that put them really on a negative situation, something that we are not of control with. So even in school, how they process information, how they process feedback, how they process aggression they receive from others. But we can also help them maneuver, because not all not all students bullied end up negatively. So there are those who can maneuver and move around and can positively, move forward. So it's nice to look at what was in between, what was something different from them. And also a focus on the self-enhancement, as mentioned by Dr. Herrin, self-image, self-concept, dami nating programs we can test, even and simulate in schools and see if this would help, enhance self-esteem so they can manage well how others might, because there are really children that are vulnerable for this, and studies have already pointed out who are these children that are more vulnerable being bullied. Remember that bullying involves the power relation. So there has to be a dominant somebody to pick on this person because of how he looks and all of other characteristics. So the focus, if prevention is difficult, because of course it's an infrastructure to be placed in school, and there are challenges within schools, we can focus also on positive enhancement of not just the bullied, but everybody, the students, on developing a positive sense of self, thereby also helping them not to bully other kids. So I think the data is so rich. It's a matter of streamlining, looking at the construct really of bullying and trying to identify certain variables that can really, and then we will have a more focused direction of the study, and that would help specify particular programs and prevention activities that is more directed, and we can test it actually in schools, no? Konti-konti lang, doesn't have to be big, but we're there, the data is already there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Dr. Belleza, and emphasizing, the role of profiling of bullies and bullied, and the digital space as another concern that needs policy intervention. Thank you so much. So we have a lot of questions in our Q&A box right now. Our speakers may want to answer them live or by chatting also their responses to these questions. So now let us get to know our second and final discussant. He is a distinguished university professor and university fellow at DLSU, where he previously served as Dean of the College of Education and Vice President for Academics and Research. He is on the executive committee of the International Union of Psychological Science and an advisor to the International Science Council's Youth Mental Health Project. A Yale PhD graduate, he has published over 300 works and was the only Filipino social scientist in the top 2% globally in scientific impact. He has held leadership roles in major psychological organizations and received numerous international and national awards for his research. Please welcome Dr. Allan Bernardo. Dr. Bernardo, you may now take the virtual floor.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, PIDS, for inviting me to be a discussant. Good morning, Dr. Abrigo, and I will be commenting on the study of esteem. But good morning also, Dr. Herrin and Dr. Belleza. I think just as a preamble, I like thank you, PIDS, for inviting two psychologists to be discussants in the work of two economists. I think that's a very good show of future interdisciplinarity in development work. I should mention that my discussion this morning also draws a bit, well, no, quite a lot from my work with the EDCOM 2, where I was the focal person reviewing the Anti-Bullying Act's implementation. So I will draw from that work that I did when I was still with the EDCOM 2. But I do have a few points to focus on, and I will go fast in the interest of time. The first two are really methodological questions for Dr. Abrigo and other researchers. This one is more specific, Dr. Abrigo, that when you model community variables in your analysis, I was not sure what the ways by which you controlled for this are, the way you estimated the community level variables. And my question is coming from the fact that the PISA sampling was only randomized at the level of the region, no? So PISA randomly selected schools, and then when the schools were randomly, well, after they were selected, they would randomly choose students within the schools. So there was no random selection within the region, or rather below the region level. So there was no randomization at the provincial level nor the municipal level. So in a sense, I do worry about making inferences about provincial and community level parameters, given that these were not randomly sampled at that level. So it will probably be very noisy if you think about it. But that's something you can consider in your analysis. Dr. Belleza already raised my second point, which is the meaning of bullying. It was very interesting that in the study reported by Dr. Herrin's group, hurt was a very important concept in the definition of what they were mentioning. In Dr. Abrigo's study, which referred to the PISA, I should underscore that they did not use the word bullying at all. As Dr. Abrigo mentioned, they asked the participants how often this happened in the past week or so. And that these were behaviors that could be possibly interpreted as bullying, but also not. So for example, one of the items mentioned was made fun of me. Okay. Dr. Belleza mentioned that classic definitions of bullying involve intention. No? Now, I also refer to another database that involves bullying. This is a WHO's Global School based survey of health of students, student health rather. And in their survey, they use the word bullying more explicitly. So I think the different prevalence rates can be explained by the degree to which bullying was explicitly referred to. And I do think that the PISA data may be overestimating actual bullying, given that some of the indicators may be not considered bullying by other researchers. Now, this has implications for the definitional issues, has implications for policy. For example, one of the last things we did in the EDCOM was to review the IRR of the Anti-Bullying Act, and mindful of the importance of intention in how bullying is defined, we discussed whether the intention should be part of the Anti-Bullying Act definition of bullying, but the lawyers in the group were very clear we cannot prove intention, and so they preferred that the intent be excluded from the definition of bullying in the Anti-Bullying Act's IRR. So we do have, so the Dr. Belleza, the definition is not simply a methodological issue, it has policy implications as well. Now, but to the main findings of Dr. Abrigo, I agree that school bullying is concerning. It's not only a viral phenomenon that will be forgotten after a few weeks. And I like how the results of Dr. Herrin and Dr. Abrigo's study both underscore how this is associated with lower achievement by and large, and other negative school-related processes. I do worry about the inference about economic losses later on, but I'll go back to that later, no? Um, the concern I raise is a matter of causal inference. No? Dr. Herrin's data, I think, allow us to have a better sense of the causal chain of bullying experiences and academic outcomes. But the PISA data is cross-sectional, so it's very difficult to make inferences about the causal link. And I do worry that about making causal attributions between the experience of bullying and achievement. It is plausible in a theoretical sense that this elasticity or correlation between bullying and academic outcomes may actually be artifacts of the school environment or the community environment that do not support academic proficiency. So I'm going to conjecture here, and this is a thought that I have been trying to polish over the past few months. The idea is that bullying is not necessarily the cause, not even a distal cause of poor achievement, but the experience of bullying is my assertion or a possibility is that it is more likely to happen in school environments where bullying is normalized. And what are these environments where bullying is normalized? This is an environment that also does not emphasize high achievement, does not emphasize rigor, discipline, whether it is academic or behavioral. There are some analyses, this came from the DLSU EdCom studies, that looked at school level predictors of bullying. And the cluster of schools that have the highest levels of bullying are also the schools where the students were less likely to reject bullying uh, um, as a problematic behavior. Now, let me clarify that. There is also data from the PISA that Philippines is lower than the global norm in terms of the rejection of bullying. So compared to the global norm, Filipino 15-year-olds were less likely to reject bullying as problematic. And in the previous studies I referred to, in the schools where the rejection the rejection of bullying is least likely, that's where bullying happens more. No, so let me put that there, and we can discuss it later on. No, now I like the optimism of Dr. Abrigo that bullying is a modifiable risk factor, but see that optimism is premised on the assumption that bullying is a predictor. But what if bullying is actually an outcome that is enmeshed by these environmental factors that produce both bullying and lower academic outcomes? No? What if bullying is actually an artifact of a host of other social environmental factors that also lead to learning losses? If this is the case, then we do have to worry about the applicability of successful international programs and look at the conditionalities of this. Having said that, I don't want to be too cynical. In our work in EdCom, we did find out that there were successful anti-bullying programs in schools and communities. Later on, if there's more time, I can speak to this, but we have to look into the conditionalities of successful anti-bullying programs. And this was a point underscored by Dr. Abrigo as well. Moving forward, I think I echo the point that the results of the study do tell us what to watch out for, and the depth eds approach can benefit from this. Unfortunately, however, it does not look like the Anti-Bullying Act will be a very viable policy instrument for this. It's a good concept. In the past 10 years, it was really focused more on handling of complaints and cases, less on prevention. And I can speak more to this later on, but because I have limited time, maybe if after all this, if you are interested in the implementation related issues, I can speak to that. No, but this goes to the same point of capacitating school personnel. When we did field work on this with the EdCom, basically there was very little in terms of capacity building. the National Educators Academy of the Philippines capacity building was really focusing on orienting personnel on DepEd memos related to child protection, child-friendly schools, rights-based education, etc. And they are concerned that the offices were concerned that they do not have experts in anti-bullying programs from the central office down to the division. So the successful capacity building efforts were those done in progressive local government communities and with the help of some NGOs and private sector. In a way, I would like to conclude by inviting everyone to kind of temper our conclusions and expectations. No, I think it was very the point of Dr. Abrigo regarding the role of the principal and counselor being potentially important is where we kind of the data hit reality very differently. As he said, the data do not seem to show that the principals and the counselors make a difference. But the literature would say it's not a matter of having a principal or a counselor there. And there might be data issues here also, Dr. Abrigo, but because when we look at the PISA data, which is different from the DepEd data, many of the students actually reported, and many of the school heads also reported, no counselor. But for me, it's not just the presence or absence of these personnel, it's what they're doing. And as you said, what do they know about bullying? How do they try to develop anti-bullying programs? Specifically because the IRR of the Anti-Bullying Act requires contextualized school-based anti-bullying policies, okay? And this is where I think things need to be fleshed out, and I'm not too optimistic about whether the policy instrument is capable of enabling the work that is needed at the school level. Again, another matter where I feel like we have to temper our conclusions is with inferences regarding its effect on the economy. I think Dr. Abrigo, the measures of bullying in PISA need to be considered before we point to the how much weight we give to the contributions to the GDP, even if it was actually very tiny, as you note. No, one final note in my case is that the whole session this morning and Dr. Abrigo's presentation as well highlighted how bullying is related to mental health, and that is the premises for this concern. But actually, I should underscore that the PISA data do not provide very good evidence for the relationship between bullying and mental health. I think Dr. Herrin's longitudinal data may have better evidence, and maybe the data from the WHO's GSHS may be a better source for that. But in conclusion, I think this is a curious conclusion, because if the evidence for the relationship between bullying and mental health is not there, it may be because of several scenarios. No, it could be that the relationship with mental health is not simple linear that is picked up by our standard regression methodologies. It may be that the effect of bullying on mental health is when it is very extreme. So it may be you have to reach a certain point before it affects it. We did find, as Dr. Belleza mentioned, that people respond to bullying in many different ways. And in our field work in the EdCom, we saw that when we talk to kids, they say, oh, we experience this all the time. And when you ask them, how does it affect you? We just deal with it. No? So in a way, for many children, we talked about primary school and secondary schools, they do acknowledge that this is experience, but for them, this is part of what they have to deal with in the school environment that is already very stressful. And to some extent, you get a sense that it is being normalized in their experience. It's just one of those things in the lives of many school children. Now, that's a very problematic conclusion if you think about it. If the kids themselves seem to be normalizing these bullying experiences, that may be one reason why the relationship with mental health is not very direct. But from the point of view of a social psychologist, that may even be the bigger problem. The bigger problem may be that our students are looking at bullying as a normal part of their social experiences in our schools. Thank you very much again for letting me comment, and looking forward to continuing discussions with everyone. Thank you. Dr. Quinones, you're on mute.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Bernardo. I can see that a lot of our students, may be viewing bullying as a normal or acceptable behavior. They might not see it as a serious issue. And they made it seem like bullying is just part of growing up, as you have mentioned. Medyo nakakatakot moving forward, no? We hope to hear more insights from you during our open forum. So please don't go away. So before we start the open forum, I would like to ask Dr. Herrin and Dr. Abrigo their thoughts on the comments of our discussants. Okay, let's start with Dr. Herrin.
Well, the comments and the questions, I was looking at the questions. They're well taken. There's certain things there that I thought were I can respond quickly. Others I need to study. One is this whole issue about gender thing. So we actually did analysis all sexes together and then separately male and female, and we do see some differences between male and female children. So that's one. The other one is this whole issue about implementation. And one suggestion there we have was on this system strengthening, looking at the implementation at whatever levels it is, at the depth ed level or the school level. The systems, by systems we mean the key elements of it is governance, the premium one, financing, the service delivery, the supply chain management, and the information system, including the implementation research, as we noted in some of the papers of the PIDS. But a key there is governance. And I'd like to think about cooperative governance, because the whole thing, all the legislation, they all say, okay, this agency is the lead agency. And then they list down all other agencies that are supposed to be part of the implementation. The question is now, does the lead agency able to coordinate all of those activities, and do they actually talk to each other in a meaningful way? So in the end, we want to ask who is responsible, who is accountable for the results at whatever level of implementation that is. The other one I thought is the financing part. We look at again the legislation. It says at the end, appropriations, you get it from your GAA and so on. But it won't be in the GAA unless you first go the planning cycle, putting the necessary budget and so on. Otherwise, it will just be, well, kung may pera, kung wala, di wala kasing pera. So on. So it's not very clear how that thing works out and so on. The others, the comments by our discussants are also well taken. We thought about exactly this issue about what do we mean by bullying. So you have bullying as defined in the Anti-Bullying Act. There are different regional, perhaps, understanding based on the language. We actually have a copy of all of the different languages, Cebuano, Ilonggo, Waray, and so on. So what does hurt means? Emotional hurt, that's one. And then in Tagalog, we look at inaapi. Is inaapi the bullying or so on? So there are many nuances of bullying, as Dr. Bernardo says, and Dr. Belleza. It depends on the context, whether they feel that there's something to it that they should respond to or not, and so on. So there are a lot of things important, the implementation part, but as a researcher, I'm more interested, can I find out some more on this, the kinds of issues that were raised by the discussants? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Dr. Herrin. Dr. Abrigo?
Well, first I want to thank Dr. Bernardo and Dr. Belleza for their comment. They're well taken. I'm actually, I learned a lot from those comments. Meron lang akong 3 points that I want to respond to. One is on the definition of bullying and how it's related to PISA. I think I agree that there's a need to nuance how do we find bullying. We were doing this study, and actually that's one of our questions na one of our questions on the data na pag ikaw ba kinukulit lagi ng kaklase mo, friends ba kayo o bully mo siya? Yung mga ganong tanong. And in our earlier analysis, we found actually a U-shape na analysis na pag mas either hindi ka kinukulit o kinukulit ka, mataas yung score mo. Meron kang ganong earlier results. And then, and this leads me to, so ngayon, kung ganun yung issue, how do we measure it in the Philippines? Maybe we cannot do something about the international large-scale assessments, PISA teams and how they measure theirs, but maybe when we do our national assessments and when we have these school environment questions, paano natin dapat tanungin yung about bullying? Ano ba dapat yung mga tanong nandun so that we can measure it for at least for the Philippines? Second is on causal analysis and providing more nuance to this analysis. And I totally agree this is not a causal analysis, although we try to purge as much of the variation from extraneous related variables. We have about 100 plus variables, community, individual, school level variables. To the extent that we are able to purge those characteristics from bullying also, so somehow we're sort of mas kampante kami rather than hindi namin kinontrol yung iba pa mga characteristics. But still, this is not a causal analysis. Yung back of the envelope calculation on economic loss is actually pretty standard economics. We just applied it here and still, well, it's pretty small, but I think it's important to show that there's money that we're losing because of bullying. And finally, about the community level variables, small area estimates, and I agree with Dr. Bernardo that the PISA is not designed to have estimates lower than the regional level. So walang dapat estimates at the province and community level. So what we did was to do a small area estimation, essentially trying to borrow the strengths of PISA and add more variables from other sources. So what we did was to find variables in PISA that has some sort of an analog for the province or community level, school level actually. So halimbawa female, so ang katapat nun po sa school ay proportion female, yung mga ganung tipo. So that somehow we can model it using individual level data and assign it dun sa community. This is similar to what we do in poverty estimation, small area poverty estimation. Pero yung sa poverty estimation is individual files to individual census. But here, this is another version of that small area estimation na meron tayong community level analog. So that we somehow, kasi ang problema nga namin dati, what can we say about Metro Manila? What can we say about Zambales or Pampanga? Walang ganung data, and we're trying to bridge that with this kind of analysis. So, thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Dr. Abrigo. Now, we want to invite our presenters and discussants to open their cameras for the open forum. Yan. For our audience, if you have questions, please use the Q&A box on Zoom webinar. For Facebook Live participants, you may use the comment section. Please do not forget to include your name and your affiliation. To set the ball rolling, allow me to read some of the questions in advance by our registrants. So this is from Mr. Cyril Brian Quizon from University of the Philippines, Cebu. This is addressed to Dr. Herrin. What institutional interventions are instituted in case of bullying, and how does it differ between private and public institutions? Dr. Herrin, please unmute.
Yes, that's a difficult question. I'm not too privy on what is actually going on. Well, we have the DepEd as the lead agency in implementing the Anti-Bullying Act and so on. But that's where the problem is, in the sense that who's really in charge at that level? Is it at the main office? Is it the principal? Is it the guidance counselor, and so on? And so for me, it's still trying to understand where can we put the ultimate accountability at that particular level? Because otherwise, we don't know kung bullying pa ito, sino yung papaluin natin kung hindi nangyari. But whatever. Maybe a wrong example.
Thank you.
Follow.
Thank you, Dr. Herrin. From Mr. Juan Pancho Carlos from the House of Representatives. This question is for Dr. Abrigo. Beyond academic performance, what long-term effects does bullying have on a student's career prospects and earning potential? I think this has been discussed in length a while ago, but just to summarize your point, sir.
Well, it's not in evidence in the Philippines, but what we found in the international literature is that those who were bullied when they were young actually have lower labor force participation rate. They have lower employment rate. And because of that, they also have lower wages. And because of that, their capacity to accumulate wealth is lower also. So mas mahirap sila pagtanda, essentially. Melinda, if I may ha, actually tinignan ko yung kanina mga questions doon sa Q&A. Baka mas maraming tanong doon para kay Dr. Bernardo at Dr. Belleza. Marami doon hindi ko kayang sagutin.
Yes. Okay. So we will go to that. Let's start with for Dr. Bernardo and Dr. Belleza. This is from our president, Dr. Orbeta. He is asking, is there an accepted framework for analyzing bullying that can be empirically tested? Siguro Dr. Bernardo muna and then Dr. Belleza.
Well, Dr. Belleza kind of summarized the classical definitions in the literature, So this is, but I think Dr. Orbeta's question is for research purposes, and really the researcher makes certain assumptions, it seemed like I was criticizing the PISA definition, but really the PISA way of measuring bullying gets around the linguistic issue. Right? It probably does not capture intention and the frequency like Dr. Belleza highlighted, but it goes around the conceptual issue of what term you use, Because even when we go to the ground, even the school heads and the children themselves, they say they see the Anti-Bullying Act IR and say the definition is still not clear. So to Dr. Orbeta, I think for research purposes, the researcher should simply make clear assumptions about the operationalization, as Dr. Belleza mentioned. And then it's those of us who try to interpret across data sets that we should be careful. But I think every researcher comes up with a very thoughtful definition, and that's fine, I would think. Dr. Delia, what do you think?
Yeah. So if you look at the literature, actually the literature can provide the framework for it, because there's an agreement of the three elements that has to be there. But the problem, even the literature has acknowledged the problem of measuring it, because it will vary on how. Like for example, I just want to pick up from, there was a question about how ano yung difference ng teasing tsaka bullying. I remember even within friends, diba, in close friends, we tease somebody, siya talaga yung clown or ano, but would that qualify for bullying? And I also want to pick up from Dr. Bernardo's conversation a while ago, that there are times my threshold talaga when there's already a negative impact on the psychological well-being, because there are those na kaya naman natin, parang this is okay. So for researchers, yes, the definition will be a guide, the construct will be a guide, although there are no concrete one, hindi kasi siya katulad ng ibang diagnostic, na parang may measurement talaga. But the researchers can go around that construct and the framework. And the literature, there has been a lot of literature already has provided and supported that construct on the core elements of bullying.
Thank you, Dr. Belleza. Another question from Mr. Juan Pancho Carlos, again from the House of Representatives. This is addressed to Dr. Herrin. How do we responsibly distinguish between genuine emotional bullying and necessary feedback or correction, especially when it's perceived negatively by children? Dr. Herrin, you're on mute po.
That's
Thank you.
that's an important question, and that's the one that is that we're grappling with. Our two psychologists here trying to figure out how do we distinguish, even if the concept is clear, intention, repeatedness, and so on, but how do we actually measure it? And how do we find out what exactly is the case? There might be also, I always joke about my friends about the regional differences. For example, the Cebuanos, their sense of humor is more like a put down humor.
Yeah.
So it appears like it's insulting, especially if applied to Boholanos and so on. So is that an insult? Is that bullying, or is it just fun? So those are the things that we still don't know, and we look forward to studies like that. And actually, the measurement part and the nuances, especially the regional nuances, the language itself might be a key to what is meant, and the culture, the tradition, what kids are used to in this case. Yes.
Thank you, sir, for emphasizing that. Another question for Dr. Bernardo naman po. What scalable evidence-based interventions can DepEd or LGUs adopt to reduce bullying, particularly in GIDA or high-risk areas? And how can we build these into existing school improvement plans or the special education fund allocations?
Thank you for that question. And it's very scalable to do comprehensive anti-bullying information programs. What we see, and does not depend on a lot of funds, is that the schools that have a fairly effective anti-bullying program, first day of class, brings in the students, bring in the parents, and just declare, this is bullying, this is hurtful. If your children do this, we will get into problems. And then there is a discussion, because as the findings of Dr. Herrin and Dr. Abrigo mentioned, this also happens at home. Okay, so it's just that articulation that these kinds of behaviors are problematic and have down the line problems is very effective, and it's not difficult. There are NGOs that have developed short videos, cartoons, information material that basically tell people in schools, their families, their parents, that this is wrong. Now, however, it's the degree to which the community sustains that messaging that is important, because this kind of anti-bullying information can be solid in the school, but when they go outside, you get to see a different set of power, violent dynamic, no? So, but that kind of intervention to that question of the participant is actually very scalable. It can be contextualized very easily. It can be translated, and it can be nuanced. And it just can be standard operating procedure. Every first 2 days of the school year, there is an anti-bullying orientation, no? And we deal with the problem of labeling bullying after the fact. Now, when you do it in the beginning, we don't have to deal with bullying ba to, karinyo lang yan, lokohan lang. No. Simula pa lang, hindi natin ito tolerate. Because the problem with intention, that the question about intentional emotional, young people don't even know they're being mean. We know that, right? Teenagers don't know that they're hurting. They're just having fun. So just focus on the behavior and the consequences. No, from the very beginning, that's very clear. And the thing is, let's be honest. A lot of these things, the term I use, are normalized. We just turn a blind eye. That's just part of how things are. So we have to begin changing that discourse. And schools, media can play a role. I don't know if social media can take a role in anything, because it's just a whole mess out there. But there are social institutions that can be on message, so to speak. But that also means that the other social institutions are not doing their own kind of bullying. So you can't have Congress, having an anti-bullying act and then showing bullying in their congressional hearings. That kind of thing becomes problematic. Okay, I'll stop.
Thank you, Dr. Bernardo.
I made
Now
you
we
all laugh.
Yeah. So then we have another question from one of our anonymous Zoom attendee for Dr. Abrigo. You mentioned about the location or places that could be a risk for bullying. Is it because of economic issues or the status of living within the economy?
Thank you so much for the question. So yung estimates na yun is actually based on an individual level model that I mentioned earlier. So it's just a projection of that model sa individuals, to the community, actually to the school, tapos in aggregate at the community to the province level. So yes, dun sa mga correlates natin, although yung demographic, economic factors didn't figure out much, more of the sinabi kong 5 na pinakamalaki. So these are yung if they experienced hunger, so mahirap sila, they are repeaters, nasa public school ba sila. So these are the biggest correlates na parang nalink lang siya papunta ulit dun sa community.
Mm-mm. Parang lang sir, medyo nag-stick lang sa mind ko yon that yung na sinabi mo kanina that the private schools have lower risk of bullying, because of the smaller class sizes siguro. More personalized yung attention ng private schools sa kanilang mga estudyante. But it goes again with the systemic gaps that exist kasi parang may inequality between public and private education in our country, no? So we have another question here, moving ahead, from Mr. Willie Rodriguez of the National Parent Teacher Association. I'd like to address this question to Dr. Belleza. Dr. Belleza, the question is, in capacitating guidance and community, can we include the number of parent-teacher associations commonly present in schools, formally integrating them into the guidance office as part of the violence and bullying committee?
Of course, di ba, these associations are not just for, supposedly kasi yung purpose ng PTA is parents are also involved and even parents are being consulted in some of the policies that would affect, because kasi stakeholders sila that would affect their children in schools, no? So, a stronger cooperation with the PTA and the guidance and counseling is always something that we ideally would have, of course. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Dr.
Um,
Allan has to add.
Yeah, if
baka
I may. Yeah.
baka may insights po.
Yeah, in the
Other insights.
IRR of the Anti-Bullying Act, the group that is responsible for the anti-bullying policies in the school is the Child Protection Committee. And the parents have a representative in the Child Protection Committee. The problem is that's not implemented in many places. In public schools, it's very rarely that is there. In private schools, it's more, they're required by law. So DepEd will sanction. Yun naman mas may pwedeng magalit ang DepEd sa private school, so they do comply. So to our questionnaire, it is in the IRR of the Anti-Bullying Act that parents should be represented in these child protection committees at every school.
Thank you for clarifying that, Dr. Bernardo. Another question from Ms. Corey Medina of UANP. But I'd like to ask this question to all of you. In your professional opinion, what most effective campaign or ways to lessen bullying in the school or even in the work environment? I'd start with Dr. Herrin. What is the most effective campaign or ways that we can lessen bullying in school or even in work environment? There was one participant on Facebook that says marami na ring bully in the government sector.
One insight I got from Dr. Bernardo is really parang let's stop defining it so finely. May intention ba yan? May ano? But if people say, hey, let's not do this, just the behavior, say let's not do this. It's mean. It might not affect you, but it might affect others. We don't know how they will respond and so on. Then if that message is conveyed, then that might be a start. And let me go back to the parents. It's true that in the Anti-Bullying Act, one of the preventive programs has something to do with the parents, which is, I presume, their representation in the whatever committee or as part of the Parent-Teachers Association. And we can use that, if that is functioning, use that parent as the advocate for giving this message in the home, so that the other adults, as we found out, other adults are also quote unquote now bullies. The parents themselves who have been working with the school will become the advocate to say, hey, this is not acceptable behavior. Let's school it. Let's school it, kids, something, or let's school it, men.
Thank you, Dr. Herrin. Mahalaga yung role ng environment, ano? Dr. Abrigo, kayo po.
Well, this is based on the literature. Well, what I read in the literature was that yung mga magandang programs on anti-bullying actually includes hindi lang yung school but yung bigger community. Yung tulad na sinabi ni Dr. Bernardo na you involve the parents, you involve the community, meron kayong parent-teacher, meron kayong para sa student at para dun sa school mismo. And I guess part of this is putting out in the open that bullying exists and it has negative implications. Naalala ko yung teacher ko nung college na pag ikaw daw ay nabubully, kailangan mo sabihin doon sa nabubully sa'yo na you have to stop, you're harassing me.
Maganda yun. And also important din yung mga parents to be open to their kids. Na pag may nakaka-sense na ng bubuli sa kanila, magsusumbong, ano? Dr. Bernardo, your thoughts po, effective ways on how we can lessen bullying in the classroom.
In one of the schools we visited, and this is, I think, in Navotas, the teachers themselves are on the lookout for what they call precursors to bullying. No, because as I said, young children, people don't always know the consequences of their actions, and they don't even know their intentions. So sa classroom, primary pa lang, yung mga bata na, maybe overly active, mga tulak-tulak, joking, the teachers already call attention to the kids. And they even make a report of it already. So in other words, there are consequences. They don't label it bullying yet. They call it precursors to bullying. And in the revision of the IRR of the Anti-Bullying Act, we also call attention to this. No? So it sort of, the message is bullying doesn't happen overnight. It's small things that start becoming normalized. And so what the teachers in that school were doing is they catch it very early. And that school has a very good anti-bullying program.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Bernardo. Dr. Belleza.
Yeah, we can create, we call it safe spaces that even includes in the workplace, di ba? Not only in school. Whether it's considered bullying or not, hurting another person has never been a good behavior. And especially, and I would pick up from Dr. Bernard, early on, di kailangan umabot sa bullying. So hurting classmates or insulting, even one time, that can be picked up already. And schools can create what we call safe spaces. And these safe spaces, comes to identifying, things that can create, further bullying or treatment. So hindi kailangan umabot kasi. So I promote safe spaces if pwede to institutions and even sa atin, no? Sa workplaces, no? Safe spaces, we call it safe spaces.
Okay. Thank you for that insights. Sana po ay nasagot natin ang tanong ni Ms. Cory Medina. Now, we have one last question po. Could you comment on the importance of combining different theories to better understand school bullying and how the social ecological framework can bring these perspectives together? I think since most of our presenters and discussants here are experts in the field, siguro isa-isahin ko rin itanong to, okay lang po ba? Could you comment on the importance of combining different theories to better understand school bullying and how the sociological ecological framework can bring these perspectives together? I'll start naman with Dr. Belleza.
Okay. We've been working, I've been working with LCSFC, and then because of our composition in a team, there's a psychologist, there's a one to look at the population, and one to economic. It has a lot of advantage in taking a lot of angles. It will enrich actually the data. So maybe the question is referring to the Bronfenbrenner socio-ecological model. No, it's a very encompassing model to look not just the individual. Maybe kami mga psychologists really parang training namin sa individual tsaka sa social. But we can pitch in once the discussion comes already from other disciplines. And the team, the LCSFC has been doing that, the OPS. Our composition is a multidisciplinary, so we can have different angles in understanding the data and been use a more holistic way of looking at things.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Belleza. Dr. Bernardo?
Yeah, I will echo the question, and I think multidisciplinary is important. And I think I would also argue that when it comes to anti-bullying policies, it's important that we don't only approach it from a legal perspective. I think the
Yes.
failure of the Anti-Bullying Act is that the IRR has really focused more on handling the cases. So, and so they were so concerned about who will be punished, what are the consequences, and the IRR, you'll be surprised, bullying cases in the DepEd are resolved at the central office. So, because it has taken a very legal approach in terms of the Anti-Bullying Act. But as Dr. Belleza mentioned, the realities of bullying are complex on the ground. No, the teachers as actors who feel they're not protected. For example, teachers say, magsusumbong kami sa labas, babantayan kami, aabangan kami. Also the perspective of what's going on with the bully. No, so we have been concerned about the victims, rightly so, but the bully is often someone who is also bullied somewhere else or is going through some other experience. So pinagdadaanan, no? So it is important that this multidisciplinarity and multi-theoretical approach also look at bullying in its multiple facets. It's not just a viral phenomenon, it's not just a legal, not just an administrative policy, but we need all these perspectives to come into play.
Thank you, Dr. Bernardo. Dr. Abrigo?
I agree with Dr. Belleza and Dr. Bernardo that we need to look at this at a more holistic way, different lenses, kasi iba-iba tayong pinanggagalingan and we have different ways of looking at things. And I guess one of the things that we're bringing to the table is to providing ano ba yung economic contribution nito. Now, for the most part, we're looking at legal, about yung feelings ng bata, but then we need to think about how does it affect the child when he grows up, pag yung mga opportunities na meron din siya, di ba? And I agree with Dr. Bernardo na yung discussion natin this morning is just about those who experienced bullying. And wala tayong kwentuhan about sino ba yung namubully. Kung namubully ka ba, nabully ka din ba? Baka mas nabully ka pa kaya ka namubully. Yung mga ganitong discussion that could be better discussed kung mas malaki yung team natin if we have more experts discussing this in the open and having the public join discussion.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Abrigo. Dr. Herrin?
Yes, before we go into various theories and see how we can put it together, I'd like to step back and maybe act as an empiricist. I was I enjoyed what Dr. Bernardo said, that maybe we could start with behavior and consequence, more like an empiricist. So from the behavior side, we ask, is your action from the bully part, is your action, did you intend it to be hurtful? Or the one bullied, were you hurt? Or something like that. And then just discuss those behavior, consequence, whether they perceive it or not. And then have some idea about, actually this kind of behavior is whether it's intentional or whether it was felt, it's not really a good kind of behavior. And then we start from there. And then whatever theory comes later might be a way to formalize these kinds of things. Well, maybe that's to empiricist or theorist. Over.
Thank you, Dr. Herrin. It's important that we discuss it, and this session is just one of the many ways we can bring this to the table. Discuss po, pag-usapan natin. So now we're down to the final stretch of our program. Before we officially wrap up, we'd like to hear some closing statements naman from our presenters and our discussants. So let's start with Dr. Herrin naman, then Dr. Abrigo, and if Dr. Miss Nanette Mayol, if she's here, then we can have some words then. And then to our discussants, Dr. Belleza and Dr. Bernardo. Dr. Herrin?
Yes, we have several of our co-authors here, and Dr. Belleza is here. Is also part of this cohort study and so on. And I was thinking that they might pursue these studies, especially using the cohort study data. One aspect of that, which I think Dr. Judith Borja and I think Delia as well, looking at some of the other information that we didn't talk about, like in wave 7, for example, there were questions regarding intention, repeatedness, and so on. So that was asked. John Alejandro also looked at some of the questions that were asked in the previous waves, and that is looking at from the standpoint of the bully. What were the characteristics of the so-called bully? Because they were also asked, did you hurt someone? Did you hurt so on? So those are other things that the cohort study data can probably be used by the co-authors already or others who are interested in this, since these are now publicly available data, the PIDS at least, that one can help us begin to understand this better by putting everybody's research mind into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Herrin. Dr. Abrigo?
Well, a couple of things. One is, I think we only scratched the surface of the issue. Marami pang pwedeng tanungin, tignan, and that leads to paano natin i-measure yung bullying. And I learned a lot from this session from our psychologist colleagues na paano ba ito i-apply sa economics and how does it impact yung policy natin? What kinds of policies do we need para ma-address ito, para makuha siya? But well, I think I'm just very thankful for everyone for being here. And
Thank you, Dr. Abrigo. Dr. Belleza?
Yes, I believe we have so much data, not only from the LC SFC, although it has an advantage because it spans a certain number of years. So parang makikita natin how they fare through, no, across the years and following them up developmentally as a cohort. But even other agencies do have data and a lot, and we should make use of this, no, para hindi naman we keep on repeating getting data, and we will try to evaluate the data and see what else do we need to supplement, to support, then to strengthen our policy notes and how we communicate to the government based on this data. So there's so much data already being done, and I hope researchers from different universities will maximize this data.
Maganda yan, Dr. Bernardo?
I'm not going to talk as a psychologist here, and just wanted to tell you that last year it was determined in the EDCOM 2 that there will be no new legislation related to bullying, no? So that is because after the study groups, it was determined that the law is fine, the implementation is the issue. So I hope Dr. Abrigo, Dr. Herrin, and the PIDS as a whole maybe not accept that decision and propose legislation or even more radical transformations in the IRR, given what the research shows. Perhaps we need an anti-bullying act that is more implementable, and that maybe it needs to be more mindful of what the data actually show rather than what it ostensibly aspires to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bernardo, for putting that up. Kasi hindi lang naman physical, no? Meron tayong digital spaces pa rin that we have to be concerned about. And bullying is crossing over into that space. Hindi natin alam, no? At sometimes, yung mga anak natin ay nai-involve din sa ganon. So thank you so much to our panel of experts for the valuable insights and to our audience for their active participation. So palakpakan naman po natin ang bawat isa. Let's give everyone a big round of applause. So before we officially close the program, let me announce the raffle winners. Ayan, may pa-raffle po kami. For those joining our event for the first time, the PIDS team selects 2 winners from the Zoom audience and 1 winner from Facebook. So may prepare po kaming tokens para sa inyo. Okay, from the Zoom, we have Mr. Juan Pancho Carlos from the House of Representatives. Yan, congratulations po. We also have Jolly John Leonardo from Psycore Health and Wellness Consultancy Services. Thank you so much for joining our Zoom session. For our Facebook, ang napili at ang nanalo ay si Miss Veronica Lumbre Rioma from Bato Institute of Science and Technology, Dolho, Bato, Leyte. Congratulations to all the winners. Please expect po a message from our tech team. They will coordinate with you on how to claim your prize. So once again, we appreciate your attendance today. The speakers' presentations will be available at the PIDS website. Andito po, naka-flash sa screen ninyo. Meanwhile, download a copy of the study from the link provided in the Zoom chat box and our Facebook comment section. To our FB participants, we remind you that we have activated the replay on demand. If you want to receive a certificate of attendance to today's session, please answer this pop quiz until 10 tonight. 10 p.m. po ha, para po makareceive po kayo ng certificate of attendance. So para naman po sa aming Zoom participants, we want to hear your thoughts about today's program. Please help us improve our events by answering our feedback form through the link provided in the Zoom chat box and Facebook comment section. To our Zoom participants, please note that the e-certificate of participation will be sent to your email automatically pagkatapos lang po ng pag-submit ninyo ng feedback form. Your feedback and recommendations will make our upcoming events even better. So for our replay on demand viewers, complete the pop quiz mentioned. And remember, your participation in this quiz is not only a great way to reinforce what you have learned today, but also a key to receiving your certificate of attendance. All right? Keep in touch with us as well. Follow PIDS on Facebook, Twitter, or X, and YouTube channels for more updates. Feel free to visit our websites for more information and more researches as well. We hope to have you again in our future events. Andito po sa screen ang aming mga activities for the coming days and weeks. So join us in our coming event on April 24. Ayan, visit our webpage, www.pids.gov.ph/events to learn the details of our coming events and register. Finally, we'd like to thank our participants from the government and private sector, academe, civil society organizations, and international development organizations. We hope the insights shared today have highlighted how bullying is not just a personal struggle, but a societal challenge with real academic and economic consequences, from affecting students' learning to shaping their futures and communities. The impact is profound, no? But so is our capacity to create change. So let's carry forward what we've learned today. Pag-usapan po natin yan. Advocate for a safer school environments, support mental health, and champion policies that protect and uplift every learner. So this has been your host, Melinda Quinones. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day ahead.
Thank you.